we can do that.
Okay, I just want to say, like, I really feel like that we have arrived.
Oh, yeah.
That we were... Now, after years, we have finally been asked to be a part of this
email
podcast.
was one of the most humbling experiences of my life.
Yeah.
Well, we wanted to make sure we got our listenership up a little bit before we asked.
Brenton, I think you've forgotten who these people are. They don't mean any of what they just said to us. Welcome back to the Ministry Without Hating It podcast, a ministry of Odyssey Haven coaching and counseling dedicated to the pursuit of answering the question, is it possible to do ministry without hating it? We have a theory that it just might be. I'm here with my friend Brenton once again.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Brenton. You're talking to the invisible audience there?
Yeah, breaking the fourth wall.
Oh, you're one of those guys.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, look, we just had a really fun, and I know we say this every single time, but our guest this episode, you and I go back with quite a bit. We've done many different types of ministry together at camps, which actually we didn't even talk about. I just realized that. That's kind of crazy. But also just church planting, ministry together, supporting one another through the seasons of life. You will hear pretty quickly the level of depth of our friendship with these two. We had a conversation with our very good friends, Sal and Krystal Bono, who have been church planners. They've been youth pastors. They've been camp directors. They've been senior pastors and have kind of run the full gamut and have learned a lot about themselves, but also a lot within ministry, and get real and very transparent, but also manage to have a lot of fun with it as well. I think this is going to be a beneficial conversation for a lot of people to hear. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely would agree with that. It would be a good time to hang out and listen all the way to the end, because Krystal drops some truth bombs in her final closing segments. So now you got to listen to the whole thing.
Literally her goodbye. It was like, boom. So, and if we were keeping score, which we kind of were, Sal got 1 and Krystal had about 1,000. So, it's good. That joke will pay off later. I promise. Just wait. Well, we have talked enough in this setup. I think now is a good time to just kick it over to the interview. And so we hope you enjoy our conversation with Sal and Krystal Bono. Well, it is our pleasure, and we are excited. I can honestly say that because they told us before this even started that they have officially arrived. Now they are on the Ministry Without Hating It podcast. Sal and Krystal Bono, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we do feel like we have, there's another level, I feel like.
I know you don't mean any of this, but keep going. Yes, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I can see your head growing.
Somebody might believe it. Yeah, somebody might believe it.
For the listeners, we're really excited to be here today.
We're really excited to have you.
All two of them.
As you will tell as we get through this conversation, I guarantee it, we are all very close. Krystal's laughing right now because she knows how ridiculous this is already. So this is good.
I love every minute of it.
We like to start our conversations with questions that have nothing to do with ministry, but need to be asked anyways, and usually end up talking about ministry at some form or fashion. So I would like both of you to describe yourself in 3 words.
All right. My 3 words would be incredibly attractive human being. Those are my 3 words.
I'm laughing because I can see what you look like, and that's not true at all. So that's why.
Okay.
I almost want to have Krystal describe you in 3 words and have Sal describe Krystal in 3 words. I almost feel like that would be
describe her as well. She would also be incredibly attractive human being. So
I would say the 3 words for me would be, I'm being serious. I would be
thank you.
Empathetic, overwhelmed, human.
Yeah. That is, if that's not actually a really great descriptor for what makes a good minister. I don't know what is. So, okay, break that down then, because empathetic, we can get that. But then you said overwhelmed human. Why did you choose those three?
Well, we actually went over these questions about an hour ago before we started the podcast, because you know us well enough to know that we probably just read through them right before. But I just was thinking about it, just like currently where we're at. Honestly, like we love where we're at, but just getting, the right rhythm, trying to figure out, all the relationships, holding all of the things at once, just being here for like not even 6 months yet here in Washington. Mm-hmm. And so it can be overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And I'm a human. And so I just
she didn't have a third word, so she defaulted to species. Like that
it wasn't like government disclosure here.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what though? But there's a level of self-awareness in that I think a lot of people don't have. So take that for what it's worth.
Yes. I win, Bono.
Why are you looking at me? Why are you looking at me when you say that?
Because there's no else to look. It's on camera. Okay, I'm looking out the window now, Sal. Tell me your real answer. Okay. Go ahead.
So my real answer would.
That's what he answered earlier.
But that's because why can't that be my real answer? Let's unpack that for a minute.
Please, let's unpack that.
Listen, he's gonna have to edit a lot.
I get this.
Yes, poor AJ. How about the interviewers?
Okay, sorry.
I think no, you guys are having fun.
You're having a great time.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I think my honestly, like my real answer would probably be it's hard because I'm in a season right now where God is really humbling me. I know it doesn't seem like it in the things that I say.
He's practicing in real time.
Right now.
But, I think, but I'm in a season right now where I think you go through these stages in life where you hit your 20s and everything, right? And I'm in my 40s and I think I'm just starting to come out of that stage. And I think, so the only thing that comes to mind is humbling. Just because that's kind of where I'm at right now. And so I think that's the only word that I came up with in real time to kind of describe myself right now, because there's a lot of, I've been doing a lot of self-reflection, and really being hey, I really am not as great as I like to think that I am in my own head sometimes. And really kind of trying to see, what does that mean? And it's been a really growing experience for me.
That's good. So he's getting away with one, Krystal. Did you see that? He's getting away with one word.
I know.
He narrowed it down.
Right.
Again.
Yes.
Again, he has to win.
Look,
it's okay. We can move on, and it's okay.
Look, I do the bare minimum. C's get degrees, right? C's get degrees.
Okay.
I think it's D's, buddy. Actually, D's.
D's get degrees.
But it's fine. It's fine. That's also great self-awareness, even though it was just one word, and that's fine. And I feel like we're going to come back to that.
The other words would be attractive human.
So we are going to come back to that.
Humble, attractive human. How's that?
Okay.
He's actually... I have no words. He's actually...
I feel like I just saw Chad's brain explode.
No, it's it's great. I think it's great. Let's ask a real hard-hitting question next then. Right. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Okay, listen. This is what's crazy.
This is an ongoing debate on this show. So,
okay, well, this is good because this is actually in my message
from 2 weeks ago.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes.
So my answer to this question is both. And here is the reason why my answer is
both.
That's
not an answer.
No. Okay, so no. Well, okay. So let me return your question with a question. Are we talking logically or are we talking culturally?
You answer it.
Stop
what do you mean?
Answer the question.
Okay, so logically, so my answer is logically, yes, a hot dog is a sandwich.
Okay, why?
Culture, because of the definition of
Logically.
a sandwich is meat or cheese or another filling in between bread. So yes, logically,
but it surrounds it. It
Bun.
surrounds it.
yes. But have you ever eaten a hot dog when the bun broke?
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yes.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Ketchup
But
gets
did you still
everywhere.
eat it? Did it become a sandwich at that point?
That's like saying my nachos fell apart. Did you still eat it? Well, okay, I guess it's a sandwich then.
Okay,
Right?
so it wasn't a sandwich when the bun was connected, and then it was a sandwich when the bun disconnected? No, logically, a hot dog is a sandwich.
Listen, by the way, I'm not trying to push back. I'm just trying to actually get you to not go. It's both. So let's.
But here's the thing. But culturally, no, a hot dog is not. I would not. When I say sandwich, I don't think of a hot dog. It's not.
Okay.
It's not a sandwich. It's not a sandwich.
So if I
Andy
had-
Sloan said it was a taco.
Oh, okay.
So my answer to the question would be no. You did answer. You said no.
yes.
You wanted me to tell him why.
Krystal, yes. Tell me why no.
Okay. So I because the bread doesn't go like this on top of it. Like it's not under it and on top of it. It's not a sandwich.
So
if you eat the hot dog by itself, obviously it's not a sandwich without the bread. But if you put the bread, even if you put it in the bun, like it's a top slit, right? It's not like a
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So then if the bun breaks and it's then just two slices of bread, it just magically becomes a sandwich?
No, it's still a hot dog.
Still hot dog. Here's the real flip. So you have Subway, right? That is a sandwich. I mean, allegedly a sandwich shop, but they cut that bread and they don't split it all the way
right.
either.
They do.
And they stuff it in there. So
Yeah.
Which is why I think
The world may never-
logically it's a
both.
sandwich.
It's like
You're-
how
I was
many
going to
legs
say
do you
Subway's a
get?
hot dog now.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's going to be like
Whoa.
the Tootsie Pop. How many licks does it get to the middle of the Tootsie Pop?
The world may never know.
The world may never know.
what piece of advice would you give to your 16-year-old self?
Don't do it.
So, yeah.
I hope to God when she answered that.
Yes, Mary Sal, is that what it
Yeah, that's what I hope she wasn't going with.
Don't do it. Is there a
Yeah.
what was the it?
I just, I think when you're 16 years old, for me, like I grew up in a really conservative home, right? And I think at 16, I hit this rebellious aspect of me where it was like, I'm going to do all the things. And I think it led me down a path that ultimately God redeemed. But I think like if I had just said to myself then, hey, just take a step back. Don't do this.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I'm saying.
So I think for me, it would be just wait. Just wait. I hit my rebellious streak, at birth. So I think
What?
So I think
Okay.
that's just kind of something. But there's been a lot of times in my life where I just like I want to do something and I want to do it now and I want to see I want to see results now and I push to make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just sit back and just wait and just see and just kind of let that settle for a minute. It is not something that I would have thought to myself.
Mm-hmm.
At 16 or 20 or 30 or how old am I now? 42, almost 43.
Almost 43.
But even at 42, that's not,
Mm-hmm.
it's, I think just wait.
Just wait. What's interesting is you both, it's kind of similar, your answers. One was just don't do it. And the other one was just like, well, just hang on a minute. But it's still kind of like that.
Pump the brakes.
Withholding. I'm curious. This is going off the script here for just a second, but I feel like I want to go there for a second. How is that playing out then even now? Because Sal, you alluded to a little bit now, but how is that as you have grown in maybe in ministry or maybe it's life? How is that coming into play right now?
I think it's a learning. I think we're still learning, honestly. I think for me, walking into this season that we're in right now, I'm much slower to do anything. Let's process through it. Let's kind of check the balances, all of those things. And Sal has grown immensely in this. And so even in this time,
It's
right?
the humility.
He nodded in like, yep, I got this.
Yep,
That's
I
the,
have.
Yes, I am.
listeners, you can't see it, but that's what happens. And that's why Krystal and I laughed. Keep going. Keep going.
He has grown immensely in this. However, even in this season, and he can speak to this, but even in this season, you know, we've barely I feel like we have really gone slow and we haven't made a whole lot of changes, right? Like what you're supposed to do. But even in this, I've come into the sanctuary at times and patted him on the arm and said, okay, we have to slow down. And just wait, And so I think if you're honestly self-aware, it's something that you're always learning and you're always growing in, and you're always asking the Lord, okay, reveal another layer of this in me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think, for me, it's just really coming because I've always had this thought in my head, right? Like that, whatever ministry, whatever it is I'm doing, right? Whatever idea it is that I have, and I have a lot of ideas.
Yes.
Whatever idea or whatever it is that I have. Yeah. I always have this thought in my head that if I were to give the keys over to Jesus, right? To the church, to this thing, to whatever, and I came back in 3 months, what does that look like? How different is it? How has he changed it?
Oh man.
And I'm just like,
right.
And I'm like,
yeah,
whoa,
wow.
I'm not moving fast enough. I gotta go. And then it hit me all of a sudden one day when I was like, but I am not Jesus, right?
Yeah.
I am not going to be able to do the things at the pace that he could do the things. I can only do the things at the pace that his spirit allows me to do the things. Mm-hmm. And at the rate at which I am allowing myself to grow on the inside. Mm-hmm. And so inward reflection has become a little bit more important to me over the years than outward manifestation of just what it is that I feel like is going on inside my head. Mm-hmm. And so I have papers and papers and papers, written ideas and thoughts and things like that I didn't pull the trigger on. And a lot of it is because I'm just wait, let's just see, let's tuck that in the drawer. Let's keep praying about it and let's just see. And when the Lord says go, then I know that I'm at that place where it's okay, this might be a healthy thing. This might be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's, I'm listening to you talk. It sounds a lot like, I've heard this actually a couple of times, even recently, that somebody asked Dallas Willard years ago one word to describe Jesus, and he said relaxed. And that has just resonated when you're talking about some of these things of if I'd handed this over to Jesus, what would it look like? Well, he may not be as far ahead as you think because he's actually doing what is actually important and maybe not what we have all these lists and goals and all of those fun things. So, but I got to tell you, like I said, the thought of hand it over to Jesus and what would be different. That for me, it's it's almost scary to,
it is.
to go, am I doing it right? Is this,
Yeah. I have found myself in this, in the last month, really questioning myself in that way a lot. Am I doing this right? Is this the right? I think when you come into a new place, and I know this is not, you didn't ask this question or whatever, but I think when you come into a new place,
take us there. Go.
You want to put your best foot forward, and you want to make sure that all the bells and whistles are shiny, and not that you're putting on a falsehood of who you aren't. But I think in the last month, the reality of where we are and the weight in which we have been given to carry for these people's lives and the things that we're walking with them through, I think, and I'm a verbal processor, so you know this, so I've talked a lot with Sal, but even in this time, right now, I think it's more of a revelation of I can't do this without Jesus. I can't do this without the Holy Spirit. And there's just this, it's a very heavy feeling of, I've got, you walk in, you're oh, this is great. And then the reality hits, and people would say, it's the honeymoon period is over. It's really not about a honeymoon period. It's just really about the revelation of where you're at and what you're carrying.
And I think at some point you come to the realization, or if you allow yourself, you can come to the realization of what you're doing in your own strength versus what you're doing empowered by the Spirit.
Mhm.
And you realize the things that you're trying to do in your own strength are the most draining things that you could possibly
That's
be
right.
doing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that those things aren't good or aren't necessary, but why aren't we inviting God into that and saying,
Right.
okay, God, I can't carry this and you need to carry this because this is just weighing me down. And it's because it's a weight we were never supposed to carry. We just have trouble kind of letting that go.
And I would say in this season, or I know we're early on, but in this season, I would say that Sal's much better at not carrying what's not meant to be carried than I am, because I'm such an empath and I feel the way that people feel. And so I'm having to learn to say, okay, I can't carry this.
And she's basically saying, I have no feelings. That's what.
But we live with an incredibly attractive human. So
it's a give and take, Chad. It's a give and take.
It's fine. It's fine. Okay, you guys have mentioned this a couple times, and I want to. You said where we're at now, and you guys have been in ministry for a very long time, and have been with us at many different spots as well, and you've been many different transitions, and we're going to talk about that. And in fact, we were talking about the last time we caught up, you were not in the same state that you're even at now. So tell people, where are you now? How long have you been there? And then maybe walk us back a little bit on how you got to where you're at least in more of the recent. If that brings in the history, do that as well. But yeah, tell us where you're at right now.
We are in the beautiful city of Federal Way, Washington.
Yes.
Right in between Seattle and Tacoma. It's gorgeous.
We love it here.
Like, I'm not an outside person, and I really enjoy being outside here.
That's saying a lot. Okay, it is saying a lot.
You're right.
We've lived here since officially December 15th of 2024, and so just coming up on 5 months.
Yeah. And how did you get there? Because you weren't there before. Where were you before?
No. We were in North Carolina.
We were in Charlotte, outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah. And
so the other side. Okay.
The other side of the country, yeah.
Yeah. We had been serving there. Sal was the creative director and pastor, and I was the spiritual life director at the school that was attached to the church there, Grace Covenant there. And it's so funny because now we pastor
a church called Grace.
Which
was crazy because we went from one Grace to another Grace.
Yeah.
Grace to Grace.
Grace to Grace.
And the way it came about, I mean, honestly, it was at Connection, the Foursquare conference last year, that Krystal really started feeling like God was speaking about us getting back into pastoral ministry, like senior leadership. And
that was in May, but in March of last year, God really began to stir our hearts that something was going to shift, and we didn't know what that looked like.
And then we started to have conversations after Connection about it, and just really praying and being like, okay, God. And it got to the point where we felt like we felt strong enough about this to go to our pastor in North Carolina and say, hey, I don't want to freak you out, and I don't want to scare you in any way, shape, or form. I don't want to lose my job, but we feel like God may be calling us back into senior leadership. And we have no idea what that looks like. And it could be 6 months from now. It could be 10 years from now. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
But we did have that conversation, and it was really well received, and it was, and it was affirmed. And so we were just like, okay, so we're just going to sit on that, and we're just going to pray, and we're going to ask some people to pray with us, and we're just going to see what happens. And through one of these conversations that I had, just, hey, would you pray for us? This is how we're feeling. We were asked if our information could be shared with the district out here, with the Foursquare district out here. And I was like, sure, yeah, I'm welcoming all conversations right now because we're just praying through this. And then it was kind of like a downhill, like a boulder rolling downhill from there. It was from one conversation to a second conversation to a plane trip out here to pray about what God was saying about the greater Seattle area to us, to another trip out here, to another conversation, a trip out here to meet the council, to, hey, when can you guys get here?
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
It went really quickly. The process all started, and I think within a matter of 3 or 4 weeks, we had the definitive that this is what the Lord had for us. And but it took some time to really like be able to button everything up and to be able to finish that season well, and to honor the school and the church that we were currently serving at. And so we made that like around December is when that happened.
And we spoke for the first time here in November of last year when we were in the midst of this transition. Yep. And I being completely honest, like coming into the church, speaking that Sunday, hanging out with everybody afterwards. It was Thanksgiving serve day. We were packing boxes of groceries and all kinds of stuff, and Thanksgiving meals, and like I had personally never felt such a sense of home the first time I walked into a place. So, I mean, at that point it was like, hey, we're coming, but it was just this affirming thing of God, like, hey, this was the right call. Like this was the right thing.
And I think that is saying a lot, honestly, for us, because I was just, that's actually where I was going to go. Cause obviously we weren't recording before. You were talking about how this has been the smoothest transition. We had a mini catch up before we started recording. Tell me, cause you said that says a lot for you, and I haven't been able to walk with you guys through some of those not so easy transitions. Talk to us about the difference in this one versus the others, and maybe even some of the things you've learned along the way that probably even helped within transition like that. For us to feel as at home, I would second that 100%. That first Sunday that we came in, the girls weren't with us. Those that are listening, we have 4 daughters. And Sal and I were here on our own that day. And I'll never forget going back to the hotel, and as soon as we left that day, like just being able to look at Sal and said, I feel like we belong here. And it just was such a sense of like beautiful, like community, family feel, something that you don't feel honestly in most churches when you go in just as a congregation member, let alone being on staff. And so for us, it really was just a confirming feeling from the Lord. And as far as the transition, it was one of those things where during the period of time that we were praying about coming here, Sal and I would literally have a conversation and say, it would be nice if we could have this. And we would pray, and literally like within 24 hours, they would call and say, hey, we were just thinking, would you guys want to do this before coming,
Like, just as an example of that, we, after one of the first conversations about this church, we'd only seen it online. We were like, we hadn't been to the area. We'd been to Seattle before, but not South Seattle. Yeah. And so we were just kind of like, we don't know much about the area. We don't know anything about Federal Way. And, the conversation we had was like, all right, next step is to get you guys out, meet the council and stuff like that. And I was starting to feel like, this whole, like, just wait, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Like all of a sudden, I don't know. Like, we don't know anything about anything. And I got a call the next day. Krystal and I were sitting out on our back deck in Charlotte talking. And I was like, man, I wish that we had the expendable income to just be able to go and just be there and not let anybody know we were there, but just be in the area, go to the mall, talk to people, go to Target, talk to people, like whatever, like just have conversations, pray through the area, and just really get a sense of what we feel like God's speaking. And the next morning I got a call like, hey, I think we jumped the gun a little bit. We want to just bring you guys out here. We don't want you to meet the council. We don't even want you to go see the church. We just want you to come out here and see if God is calling you to this area and these people. Wow. And we were like, okay, like, let's do that. And so
it's
we
like
had one trip.
Jesus is listening.
It was. I mean, and it was crazy. We could go, and it would take up a lot of time, but we could just go like kind of moment by moment through that decision. And ultimately, like for us, being that we have transitioned to several different places over the last decade of our lives, we really were looking for something long-term and really wanting to like settle our family in and want to have roots and have that church home family feel. And so before we made any huge decisions to, move across the country or something, we wanted to make sure that this is what the Lord had. Yeah. And so, just that every step of the way, I would say the Lord has made very evident that even down to our house, the house that we're currently living in, it had been on the market rental for probably like 2 or 3 weeks. And the first time that I saw it, I fell in love with it. And I told Sal, I was like, I love this house, but there's no way for us to be able to see it. Like, I'm not sure if this is, all of these things. And so I just kept seeing it on Zillow. And then when it was, finally official and we got to meet our staff and all of that by Zoom, our associate pastors, they text us separately and they're like, we'd love to go look at houses for you guys. And they went, and this house was still available. And they went through and this house and one other house. And so we applied for both, but secretly in my heart, I just really wanted the house that we're living in. And that's where we're living. Like, wow. It's just been one great thing after another.
So you have mentioned you've been in a few different spaces. So this is obviously not your first stop. I want to go back. I'm just curious. I don't know if I've ever actually heard this for either of you, but what was the catalyst, or whether that's an event, a person, maybe an audible calling or whatever it was that actually began your ministry journey?
Sal's answer is way better than mine, but I'll go first.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Yours is going to be better than his just because we like you better. So go ahead.
I know.
It's not a secret.
It's okay. It's not a secret. It's just how it is.
Okay.
Anyway, I would say when I was 17, I went to, I had an opportunity to do a missions trip to Israel. And I can remember that is where I really felt called to ministry. And then I would say after that period of rebellious time that I just kind of alluded to, when I was 20, I moved to a suburb of Detroit, Michigan, and was a intern at Evangel Christian Church in Roseville. And Bishop Jerry Piscopo was the catalyst to really discipled me, helped me took me in as his own, loved me well, was the father that I needed because mine had passed away when I was young. And so he really was the one, him and his family really were the ones that helped me to really accept the calling on my life and to be healthy enough in that time to be able to begin that journey, I think.
So, yeah, that was really good. Calling to ministry in the Holy Land. I don't know if mine's better than that. All right.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's not, but go ahead and try. Go ahead and try.
So
by the way, Sal and I really, really love each other. It's okay.
Yes.
This is how we show our
Hey, so
affection.
Listen, this is a side note before you tell the story. I saw this thing on this reel on Instagram that it's a new study from the psychology, whatever you want to call it. Lindsay would know.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That friends that actually are
that roast each other,
each other, are actually have deeper friendships than just
true.
And it's really healthy, right, Brenton? Isn't that what it said?
That's what I saw.
We are
modeling. I don't know if I
modeling.
believe it, but
We're modeling health. No,
we're modeling.
We are.
Yeah.
Not only am I incredibly attractive, I'm a model of relational health.
Oh my God!
Wow.
What's happening?
Oh.
Well, I'm giving Chad a lot of ammunition here.
I was about to say, or you're a guidepost as to what not to do.
I'm just saying.
Look, I think is what they call that. Yeah,
it's like the hot dog conversation, right? You choose which it is. You choose.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah.
So
you're definitely a choice.
All right, going back to my calling to ministry. Yeah, I'm a choice that she has to faithfully make every day.
Oh, Sal loves Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Those are my favorite books growing up.
Yeah,
okay.
Me too.
So calling to ministry, honestly, my life was so radically different before I met Jesus. I mean, radically different. And then when I got saved, it was like a complete 180. And I started doing ministry pretty much the next day. And so to me, meeting Jesus and actually having an understanding of in my life in that moment what it meant it meant so radically changed my life that it was like I couldn't not do ministry. And so that was the big catalyst for me to be like, hey, whatever that looks like in my life, this is what I'm sold out to now until I die. Like, this is just it.
I'll never forget the moment that he, like, you know, we had met, right? And basically I invited Sal to come to the church that I was interning at. That's where he got saved, and immediately started, you know, helping and volunteering and things like that. But it was about like 2 or 3 weeks after he got saved. And I'll never forget it like it was yesterday. I had never wanted to be like, I never wanted to marry a pastor, even though I knew there was a calling on my life. I didn't want to be in ministry like that, I don't think, right? And so I'll never forget when he came to me and said, I think God's called me to be a pastor. And the look on my face, I was like, oh, that is so great. And I walked away, and inwardly I was like, no, you know.
What's it? Talk to us about that. Why? What was behind that for you?
Oh, for me. Okay. Well, growing up, you know, like as a pastor's kid.
Yeah.
As a pastor's kid. And so, you know, just the hurt of it all, like, and, you know, the responsibility and, you know, the financial aspect was huge, you know, just knowing how my parents struggled my whole life. And then like after my dad passed away, my mom worked 3 jobs, you know, while being a children's pastor. Like it just, you know, it was not something that I ever was like, oh yes, I want to do this.
And I mean, for me, I did not grow up in church. And so I didn't carry any of that with me. Mm-hmm. And so in my head, I'm thinking like, this is a great decision. Like, this is amazing.
But Sal, do you think because you had that perspective that maybe you bring something to the table that like church kids don't? Like you got a sense of
kids anyway, for
newness.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that statement. You know, and you know, like I said, as much as I joke, guys, I'm not as big headed as I, you know, but for me, like that is something that I always counted as a strength, you know, like I didn't carry any of that. I didn't carry any baggage of what church is supposed to be, how it's supposed to look. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't carry any wounds from the past. I didn't carry like as related to church. And so at that point, you know, now I got plenty of battle scars now.
So we haven't gotten into your ministry journey yet. So yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, no, I think that was to me, that was a strength and that was a plus.
I'm curious what the dynamic though was between you as you guys move forward. Like how did that, I mean, maybe it didn't, but how did that work with the two of you?
Krystal said at one point she didn't know if she could be married to me.
Yep.
Well, I wanted to when I said I want to be a pastor, like it's the only frame of reference I had for doing the work of the ministry, right? Like that is what we called it. Like that is what so everybody who did the work of the ministry in my mind was like a pastor. And it didn't matter to me if you were like doing like film that was, you know, like that was inspiring people on that level or creating music, inspiring people on that level or having the senior pastor role at a church. Like it was all pastoral ministry to me. It was like this thing. And that was all I knew. That was my whole frame of reference. So when I said I want to be a pastor, I had this whole grandiose idea of what that could look like in all kinds of different areas of life. And so I go to Krystal one day and I'm like, I feel like God really is calling me to be creative, to make film, to do this. And she was like,
that's not ministry.
She told me, she's like, that's not ministry. And I was like, well, what do you, and I'm like shocked at this point because I'm like, what do you mean that's not ministry? Yeah. And she's like, well, if you think that's what ministry is, I don't even know if I don't know how we could be married.
Yes. I said that. I said that. Okay.
Way to own it. At least.
And then you downloaded eHarmony. What happened? What happened next?
No, eHarmony. What?
Yeah.
That wasn't a thing back then, was it?
No.
It might have been. No. I don't know.
It might. Yeah, I don't know. Man.
Honestly,
I was going to say some other ones where like nobody uses that for that, so never mind. Let's just keep.
Yeah, I think that wasn't like the first, I can vividly remember those conversations. That was like in the first like 2 to 3 years of our marriage. And And it wasn't long after that we became youth pastors at a larger church in Central Florida for another denomination at that point. And Sal and I were talking about this previously, and like, for a lack of a better like wording at that point, I think Sal just he kind of just like, this is not what I mean, but this is what I'm going to say. Okay. He kind of just got in line and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Right.
Okay.
Like that sort of thing. And he constantly would make comments still about like, you know,
is this what it's supposed to be? Like,
yeah.
Is this what it's supposed to look like?
Yeah.
Because if it is, man, I don't know if I want to do this.
And so then like we had opportunity after we became youth pastors to also like, start a discipleship style residency program. And we had, you know, and that really became Sal's outlet as far as creatively really beginning to use those giftings that God had put inside of him for other like teenagers and like kids out of college or like early going to college, you know, that felt like they were called to do something maybe different than what the box church model would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like, I mean, Sal was ahead of the game, I feel like, at that point in some aspects.
Sorry, it's my daughter.
Yeah, I appreciate you silencing your ringer for this interview. It's great.
she rings through. It is silence. She rings through.
Oh, well, tell her I said thank you too.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I'm done.
You're done.
My kids ring through, by the way. My kids have access all the time as well.
Okay. So I hang on. I don't think you are done, because here's what's really interesting. You guys actually went there for me, because I know because I know you, that your view of what ministry actually is has shifted even just in the last few years. You know, but I mean, you take us back to then and maybe talk about some of the ebbs and flows. But obviously, Krystal, you came in with you're churched. You know what ministry is, and Sal came in with it brand new. And maybe trying to see what it could be. I think he even said ahead of his time in some ways. But even that has shifted for both of you as you have weathered a lot of these things in a very nonlinear way, by the way, which is not a bad thing. I'm curious then, I mean, just talk to us how it has shifted and maybe land where you're at today when it comes to how you view ministry. Well,
I mean, so just going back to that time, like when we started that discipleship program in Central Florida, and Sal was able to, and me too, really, like we were we were doing all the things. It was like 2005, 2006, like all the way till 2009, we were doing that. And it really began like to really shift my perspective in some ways. And I'll never forget, like during that time, there was a movie that came out. It was called like How to Save a Life, right?
To Save a Life.
To Save a Life, right? And it was a Christian film. And I'll never forget, like I came out of the movie theater and I looked at him and I said, I get it now. And it was just a switch for me. Like I started to understand that church and ministry could be and was supposed to be bigger than what my perspective had been. And then in
when you say that, what do you mean? When you say bigger, what do you mean? Like different or
just different? You know, okay. I think I had thought that the only way you could do ministry was if you have a position in church.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
If you are on staff on staff, right?
Have a title.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that came a lot from my family of origin, from the denomination in which I grew up in, and just that understanding of if you have a title, you're important and you actually can do something for the Lord. And so from there, you know, we left that place and we went to California, from Florida to California, to help with a church plant, and got burned really bad. And it
She's
didn't
laughing
end
through
well.
the tears. Yes.
Yeah. It didn't end well. And from there, we kind of were houseless. We were never homeless, but we were houseless for 9 months with 3 kids and a dog.
Yeah, just living in
And
family members' back bedrooms
Yeah.
or basements or whatever. I mean, the economy at the time, I couldn't get a job at Walmart. I was trying to find like something.
this was in 2010.
This was right after the economic
Yeah.
Yeah.
recession.
To 2011, that kind of happened, or I don't know, that period of time, guys. It all blends together at this
Yes.
point. But
Yes.
but anyway, I say all that to say it was during that time that God really began to form a different mindset within me, and I think within both of us. Sal would say he's always had that, but I think it really gave us an opportunity for us to allow God to form us into who He wanted us to be as a couple. Because we were living on faith, and we were living on God's provision, and we were living on the goodness of other people, and that can get really wearisome when you have 3 kids and a dog.
Yeah.
So I mean that happened. And then when Sal finally landed a job back in California, again, it was like a day-to-day factor of what the Lord was doing in our lives and really shifting our perspective on where I saw ministry. You could do ministry and not have a title. You could do ministry and like it be a way of life. My family was my ministry. Yeah. My husband was my ministry. The landlord that was so kind to us and was being used by the Lord, and she didn't even know the Lord, she was ministry to, there's just people were the mission. It became like, okay, we need to live on mission so people can come to know Jesus. Yeah. That it really doesn't have anything to do with a title or a position, or if you're on staff being paid by a church.
Yeah. And I think one of the things Krystal really hit on that we believe wholeheartedly is that ministry is not a position. Yeah. That you hold. It really is a way of life. Yeah. It really is the way that you live your life. And that's why, and so we look at the church, and we look at the church in the broad church and our church here in Washington. And we're like, the people that are out in the seats on Sunday mornings are ministers of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And we are servants. We are gifts to the body to equip them to continue to do the ministry mm-hmm. that they're called to do day in and day out. Mm-hmm. And so that really kind of shifts your perspective a little bit when you look at your position and your calling versus what ministry is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's something that's something I've always wanted to be a part of. That's something that from the beginning I was like, but we all, we know Jesus, and we're all ministers of the God. Like this is, It doesn't have to be the title, the position, the staff position at a church. It's really more about I have a vibrant and growing relationship with Jesus, mm-hmm. and out of that inward work flows this outward manifestation of who He is mm-hmm. in my life daily, and in conversations with the people that I meet, and in the friendships that I have. And that's not just reserved for people who are pastor so-and-so. That's right. All of us. That's everybody. Right. And then ministry becomes a way of life, not a position that you strive for, that you gain. And I think as ministers of the gospel, a lot of times, earlier on in our ministry, I think that we did a disservice, or we're done a disservice, because we don't share that a lot with people. I think the Western church as a whole is more of a pastors will do it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Yep. The staff is the one who does all of the work, and we come on Sunday morning and we sit and we hear what they have to say, and then we go out and we come back next week. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a disservice to people who know Jesus, because to empower people to know, I'm a minister of the gospel. I have the power and the authority inside of me to be able to pray for people and see them get healed, to be able to pray for people and see them come to know Jesus. It's not just a pastoral or staff positional mm-hmm. Reward.
It's not just checking a box. There's life. There is so much life when you engage in what Jesus called us to do, as opposed to, I showed up on Sunday, check, did my religious duty.
Yeah.
I'm out.
When we realize, I feel like that our relationship with Jesus is really relationship and not just in name only.
Yeah.
Then it is a consistent, like, leaning in and hearing him and being and discerning and living your life in that way so that you can, in fact, do what Jesus has called us to do.
And I think for those of us who find ourselves, like in the current position as one of those gifts that God gives to the body, right? Mm-hmm. Apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers, the gifts that God gives to the body to equip them to do the work of the ministry. Mm-hmm. I think for those of us, it's a really inward reflection to look at what you're doing in ministry, mm-hmm. to look at how you're presenting the gospel, to look at how you're discipling people, to look at what does that look like, because all these things sound great, right? Yeah. And be like, is that the position of my mouth or is that the position of my heart?
That's it.
Yeah.
And really trying to understand, okay, is there a disconnect here?
Yeah.
Because if there is, then that shouldn't be the thing that I say just to say it.
Right.
I really should try to internalize and believe that.
Yeah.
And then have that come out because it's something that's deeply held on the inside and not just something that I read in scripture, I heard somebody say it, I think sounds really good.
Yeah.
Well, and there's from the minister perspective, as you're talking, I'm thinking too, we can do that, especially when it is our vocation as well, that it can be oftentimes hard to separate that this mm-hmm. is what I do, not necessarily who I am, type of a thing. And I really liked how you said this position of my mouth, or is it my heart? And that's really well said.
Yeah.
That's good.
Good job, Bono.
Good job. You get one.
I get one.
That's it.
Yay.
She's got like 1,000. Right. So
all right. Look, I'll take my one.
If we're keeping one, I want to. Moving along in your journey, there is a season we haven't talked about yet that is much different than what you guys are in now, and that was during your time in Detroit, and that was a very non-traditional, I think that's a good way to say it, approach to ministry. Tell us what your focus was during that, and if you would like, because I know this is the point in your journey where we met you and got to walk through some really fun things with you, even in our own personal lives. And we're so grateful for you. Our family is just so grateful for you and your family. But talk to us about what that focus was, and maybe what were some of the things you learned about that as you've taken into this season that you're in now.
You go.
Oh man,
You go first.
So the focus in that season, a lot of my own focus in that season was about seeing the things that I want ministry to be. Looking at the book of Acts and saying, what does that look like? What does that church look like? If that was all we had to go on as a manual for what does that church look like? Mm-hmm. And then trying to see that come to pass in the city that God had called us to be in, which at that time was Detroit, which is where I grew up. So it was like, that was home for me.
And
it still is.
And because of the healing and the things that had happened in my life, I considered Detroit to be home too. So it was like going home for both of us.
So here, God brought us home, and I had all these things, all these ideas, and this is the just wait. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I was in constant spaghetti phase, right? I was constantly throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks, what works, what doesn't work, And for that, honestly, I am eternally grateful because it was a season where I got to see a lot of things that didn't pan out the way that I wanted them to pan out.
Like what? Just give us some examples of those.
Yeah. So for example, like we had this, we wanted to launch our first church. We really really wholeheartedly believed that we were going to launch our first church in the Eastern Market, and that was going to be our launching point. And we did ministry in the Eastern Market. We were vendors there. We had a booth there. We created a business so that they would let us be there. And we did ministry, and we prayed with people, and we talked to people, and we, sold goods and like all of that stuff. But that church in and of itself, that church plant there never really came to fruition. It wasn't until we started up in a bar, and we started up in a hotel, or not a hotel, an apartment complex, and we started up in
no hotels.
No, that was not one.
Okay.
An apartment complex. And we started up in a McDonald's, and those were the small, like, community driven and led congregations that really took root. But that was something where it was like, God, I really thought you were gonna, like, there was just gonna be this massive revival in my head that took place at the Eastern Market, and that never really came to pass. So here's another thing, like, we launched several businesses while we were there. One of those businesses was called The Studio. And The Studio was one of the first studios, like creative hubs, in a neighborhood in Detroit that was known as Milwaukee Junction. And it was just in Detroit, there's like downtown, and then just north of that is New Center. And then just north of that, right on the outskirts of New Center, is Milwaukee Junction. And it's in this downtown area. And so we had this 3,000 square foot warehouse space that we rented for like dirt cheap at the time. It had been abandoned for 30 years. Like, we did a lot of clean out and a lot of just renovation and all this stuff.
A lot of dead birds.
And there were a lot of dead birds in this space.
Okay.
But we launched this co-working studio space, and we filmed there, and we did all kinds of media projects there, and it was awesome. And we just had and we felt like, man, God really wants Milwaukee Junction to be a center for creativity for the city of Detroit. That did not happen in our 9.5 years there. It was us. Like, we were it, and it didn't happen in our 9.5 years there. 8.5 years.
Yeah.
Who's counting?
There was whatever. It all blurs at that point.
Yeah. You hit 2020, and what happened before that? I don't remember.
Nothing.
Yeah. Anyway,
there was an article that came out in the Detroit News and Free Press a couple of weeks ago that was the article was titled "Milwaukee Junction: A New Center for Creativity in Detroit." And I was like, I was so like, kind of like, wow, I didn't get to be a part of that. But also so much like, well, wait a minute, I was a part of that. Like, there was this, and this thing that we did, this thing that we started, this vision that we had for while we were there came to pass. It just didn't come to pass through us like we thought it would. And so that was both like, oh man, and man, way humbling. To go. Like, that's awesome.
Humbling.
And it was very humbling.
Yeah, that's good.
It was a very humbling thing for us, for me in particular.
So I think for Detroit, for us, like going in, like initially, like, I think when you go into church plant, you say, oh, this is what it's going to look like. Mm-hmm. And then it doesn't look anything like what you thought.
Well, when we first got there, we wanted the building. We were going to get the building, the sign, the marquee. It was going to be a normal, regular looking, building. Mm-hmm. And then the neighborhood that we found ourselves moving into is a neighborhood called Woodbridge, and there were 3 churches you could walk to from our front door
that were empty on a Sunday morning.
The most I ever saw was 11 or 12 cars in a parking lot, and that was on an Easter Sunday morning. Huh. And so I was like, wow, like, does this neighborhood really need a 4th building with such and such church on it?
Yeah.
Is that really what is reaching the people? And that's really when I fell in love with the idea of gospel contextualization and neighborhood contextualization. And sometimes I think I went about some things the right way, and sometimes I'm like, I went about that the completely wrong way. But for me, that the process of really learning a people and learning a neighborhood and learning where God's placed you, and not saying, hey, we're the church, this is what we come to offer you, but hey, what is it that you need? How is it that we can take the story of Jesus and make it real to you?
Right.
That has been a bedrock for everything that we've done since.
Yeah.
Which,
by the way, I need to jump in here. That was something, because we planted around the same time as you, and we have obviously had some transitions since then as well. But that is something that I learned specifically from the 2 of you in ministry, just watching how you've done it, that we have taken into to Cedar Rapids, where we're at, even is we need to become a part of this community. We need to know our neighbors. We need to actually love where we live. And as you said, contextualize that. So I want to say thank you for that, because that's one of those things that has always resonated, stuck with me, and carried into what I do here. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
That's so humbling.
Really, no.
Callback. Good callback.
Crystal, what do you think? What do you think, Crystal? I'm going to just block half of this screen here.
Well, I just think, like, not to be like super emotional, but like Chad, you and Lindsay were so pivotal for us at the end, like, you know, midway, honestly, till the end of our time in Detroit. You know, just you guys really loved us well where we were and saw us for who we were. And Lindsay always asks the hard questions, and she does.
She does. She's good at that. Yeah.
She's great at it, and I love that about her. But I don't know, like, you saying that just means the world. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you've seen us at a lot of different. Get out.
Ditto.
You've seen us at a lot of different stages in our life, and so I'm just great. That's really thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Yes.
It has been a joy, honestly. I mean, like you said, we've had some hard things that we've all walked through together, but that just, I think it just strengthens the friendship. So yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
So looking back at those ups and downs within that time, and maybe you can even connect this to your ministry journey and where you're at now. What do you feel like have been some of the consistent themes or things that you have seen that God keeps bringing you back to? You know, I've heard the word grace a couple of times. I'm curious what else, or maybe expound upon that. What are some of the themes and things that you look back and go, God has been saying this to us the whole time?
For me, personally, I would say redemption is a constant in my life. Like, just the power of God's redeeming love in my life from the moment that I was a teenager until now. I constantly say that Sal was a gift of God's redemption to my life, and just and then my kids, and and being in ministry at all, honestly, is such a privilege. Honestly, I really value it and honor that. But I think I've seen God redeem everything that I have felt like was a mistake or a step out of place. He has always brought us back around and always like loved us for who we are and not for what we do. So that has something that is something for me that I just, there's not enough words to express my gratitude, honestly, to God for that. Like, it's just been, it has been a journey, but to be where we are right now, I'm very grateful. Yeah.
I think for me, it's grace. Not just the grace that, the overwhelming grace when you really look back and reflect on like your own salvation, your own like unworthiness in the sight of God, washed in the blood of Jesus. And then just all of a sudden there's this reconnecting that you get to have. But grace for the mistakes, grace for the things that you do wrong. Because like I do a lot of stuff wrong, like, and I'm the first one to beat myself up over it. Like I do something wrong. Crystal will tell you, like I'll beat myself up for a week over something stupid that I said or stupid that, like I'm beating myself up all the time. And God constantly saying, hey, like there is grace for that. There's grace for your mistakes. There's grace for the thing. Like I didn't call you to this time, this season, that season, past seasons because you were perfect. Like, in fact, the exact opposite. I called you because I thought you might just need to lean on me to actually do it. But when you get too pigheaded and you start to lean on yourself, there's grace for that. And you don't have to beat yourself up and you don't have to kick yourself because you haven't arrived and you're learning and walking and growing just like everyone else is. And so that has been a consistent theme through, not to be like, like, oh, I suck, like that, but that, Like you suck, God doesn't. Like that's a consistent theme in my life, and it's okay. Like it's okay to know that that's like, hey, that, and it gives you freedom to make mistakes. It gives you freedom to try new things. It gives you freedom to say like, I feel like this might be what God's saying, but I don't know, and I feel like I just need to give it a shot.
Yeah.
And even if God looks at you, 10 years later and says like, yeah, that was wrong, it's like, but it's okay. It's okay. And then what did you learn? What did you get to learn? And how did you get to grow in that period of time?
It's so funny. We've said this before on other episodes. I know I've told you guys before. I look back on certain seasons, even specifically our time, in Indy when we met up. And I was thinking about this even the other day, because if you look at it now, it's not, you look back and go, what happened, kind of a thing. But at the same time, the thing that I really value is that you're right, God brought me there because I had to learn a new level of humility, honestly, and leaning on, and that I don't have this all figured out, and that and how does that lesson affect me today? So I'm not having to continue to relearn that lesson, because yes, I'm 100% with you. I think there are seasons that we have that might be the only reason you're there. It has nothing to do with the actual ministry that you are assigned to. I mean, it is, and God is giving us work for that, but he's more concerned about what he wants to do in me and what he wants to take me through and bring me into. That maybe sets me up for a season that I had no idea was even going to be coming, right? I mean, you guys, that is your story, right?
Yes.
Well, I think at some point you have to learn, like you're not the man.
That's right.
Like you're just not. Like
you're just
like
a
I'm
human.
not. Like
Human.
Like
human.
I'm because like, and there's an element, especially when you're young and you're like, and I'm not knocking young people. When I
you
say
sound
this,
very old right now, but keep going.
Like
I've asked Sal, we've asked
I'm gonna
ourselves,
be
when did we become the
43.
old people
That's
in
right.
the room?
I'm gonna be 43 in a couple of weeks. And but
so
You're gonna be
especially
45.
like, I know, right?
Okay, get over it.
But especially when you're like, when you're young in
Chad.
ministry and you're like, like, man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take the world by storm. I'm going to make this thing happen. I'm like, and the thing in Detroit is like, before we left Detroit, God was speaking to Krystal for 2 years. Like, hey guys, I think your season's about up. And I'm like, I'm hanging on. Like, and I'm like, no, like we are going to make this work, or we are going to die trying.
And we almost did.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's like, that is the absolute worst thing that you can possibly say when you are as a called minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm going to make this work, or I'm going to die trying. It's like, that should have been a red flag to me right there, that like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I am not the man. Like, Jesus is the man. I am not the man, know? And so for me in my journey, in my, in my walk, it has been a really, that's why like humble was the thing, right? Like humility was the thing, because that was something I had to learn, because it's not something that was just kind of baked into me.
Yeah.
And so like, and that Detroit experience was nothing if it wasn't a humbling experience for me to learn that like everything that I hold with open hands. Like, the staff
that this question yet,
but we're just going. We're just rolling.
This is good. Keep going. Yeah.
Like everything that I hold with open hands. Right. The staff that God has given us here, we hold with open hands. The church that God has given us here to steward, we hold with open hands. Yeah. The ministry that God's given us to do, and the way He's called us to do it positionally in the season, we hold with open hands. And in Detroit, I didn't do that because I was the man, right? And when we started in Detroit, and you're doing something so radically different that like, the leadership magazine is calling because they want to interview you for their, thing. And you get this like really inflated sense of self.
Yeah.
And it was, and like I fell victim to that hard in the beginning. And so even when God was trying to shift and trying to move things, I didn't want Him to do it, because I'm like, what does that do? What does that change? And how does that change the perception of me and what it is that God has called me to do in this season, and what we're telling everybody that God has called us to do in this season? And
all about
I could
identity
not
at that
let
point,
go of that thing that I found my identity in. I couldn't give that up.
Yeah.
until God had to pry it from my, literally almost from my cold dead hands, right? Like, you know, and then
this is a true story. At one point, Sal was not eating very well.
Yes.
And kept telling his youngest to say, "Hey, tell your daddy to eat a sandwich.
Eat a cheeseburger."
That's right. Eat a burger. Eat a sandwich. Yes. So anyway,
and that's how bad it got, and how tightly I clung to this thing, because that is what I identified myself with.
And here's me as the wife letting go and being like, please, let's go.
You know, and everything she's trying to let go, I'm just trying to grab it. I'm trying to catch it as she's letting it go, because I'm like, we cannot give this thing up. Like, this is who we are. Yeah. And God's like, that is the exact statement I wanted you to say right before I rip this away from you.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that God is always, I feel like, always forming and shifting our sense of identity? As soon as we think we got it all figured out, it's like, all right, that's good. Now let's work on this.
Yes.
Do you find that interesting?
I've just like come to grips with
I find that infuriating, to be honest. Sometimes I'm like, really? I just had this figured out.
I think I'm less infuriated by it now and more just like, okay, things are going like I have an inner decent sense of self, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, so what is God gonna bring to my attention now that I need to work on? And it's a moving target.
I think that Chad said it well when he said, like, it's never really about the position. It's always about our formation. Yeah. It's always about our growth and who God's calling us to be in this season and for what's to come. Because, I mean, Detroit probably, I know there was a question that, like, what was the most challenging thing that you ever, you know, have experienced in ministry? And you would think that being houseless would be like the most challenging thing. But I would honestly say that the most challenging thing was letting our dream of what we felt like Detroit was supposed to be, die and walk away, giving it fully over to the Lord, letting it go, whether or not it was reluctantly or not, and really beginning the grief process of realizing, like, this is done. This season is over.
Well, I think because we were, like, for me, like, I was grieving the loss of my identity at that point.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so it wasn't just a loss of a position or a dream or an idea or a thought. Like, I got plenty of ideas. Yeah. The loss of that was grieving the loss of my identity, and then realizing where my identity, that I had misplaced it. And really then going back to try to find it and say, okay, where did I put that? I need to get that back and put it where it's supposed to go. And I think that was hard. And I think, you know, and for me, and for the longest time, we were kind of bitter about Detroit in general. Like, you know, I would see things like Krystal's the empath. She's the emotional. I'm not emotional. I'm not an emotional person. I never have been. And so, like, but I would read stuff about Detroit and, like, tear up and, like, God, why do I feel so, you know, it's like God was working these things in me, you know, that really were in working these things out of me, to the point where it's like, you know, I mean, I'm a huge Detroit sports fan. I root for all the sports, you know, and I continued to root for all the sports teams. But now I root for the city more, and I root for the people more, and I root for the churches and the planters and the people that are there to do the work that God has called them to do in that city, even though I'm not there. And there was a point in time where I don't think I could have done that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that God used all of that to shape you, to actually bring you to a new level of humility, to be humbled within that, but to be able to say, because I understand that pain of you look back on it really is. It's a death of a dream, but I love how you said it was my identity and it's tied to that. And, you know, it can be tough. You know, I remember even some of our first time going back to Indy, you know, after having been gone, it's just like, I feel like that didn't go the way I wanted to. And you feel like a failure in some ways and walking through that. How did you process that to get yourself to that spot of, no, not only can I be okay being here, but no, I love how you said that. I'm rooting for the city and for the people and for other people who are now putting their hands to the plow in that space.
2 words. Therapy.
That's okay. 2 words, therapy and counseling. Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. No, I love it. No, that's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
mean, honestly,
it was mentorship and counseling that helped us to, and coaching, and a lot of coaching, and people helping us to see the things that were already, realize the truths that were buried already inside of us, that we just didn't want to come to the surface, and really unearthing a lot of that. And that took a couple of years.
Yeah, when we left, when this, but when we left Detroit, we went on sabbatical for 2 years and really did the hard work, honestly. It was a period of time. God's smart, and he set us up for some time just to be able to
This was
rest
over COVID.
because it happened during COVID.
Right.
And so, we left and went to a place in Florida that we had friends and family there, and we just rested. And big shout out to Paul Kuzma and to Trey Abney and to lots of, people that they knew us and knew the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they helped us to walk through that. And I don't know that we would be where we are now if we hadn't have taken that time, if we hadn't had been willing to really dig in. And even after that 2 years of sabbatical, stepping back into ministry, continuing to have mentorship and spiritual direction and coaching and therapy and pastoring. Like, you need all of those things no matter what position you hold or don't hold.
And I think when you go through a season like that, you learn after you decide and make the decision to let go. Mm-hmm. You learn who is around you and who is with you, because you're doing the cool it thing. And, you think you're the man so much that other people start to believe it. And
not Chad, though.
Never. Not Chad. Chad never believed that.
Not once. That's the honest truth. Keep going.
And who really cares about you? Like, who really cares about you and your development and your so keeping those people close and keeping those people around and realizing, like, man, God has placed that person in my life to be able to confide in, to be a trusted source. That's good. And to just have conversation and just bounce ideas back and forth. And they're going to be open and they're going to be honest and they're going to tell you when you're being an idiot, and it's just like that, and in love, and it's just like that, and having those conversations and really allowing yourself to be open to building those relationships and saying, okay, I don't want to pour myself into something that isn't going to bear real fruit. Mm-hmm. And I know, like, the fruit that I need to see in my own life internally is the fruit of the Spirit. I don't want to see the fruit of the Spirit in my ministry right now. I want to see the fruit of the Spirit in my heart and in my own life. Yeah. And so really saying, like, okay, what relationships are going to help me to uncover what that looks like and how I get there? Those are the relationships I want to pour into. Yeah, and I want to give myself over to.
That's good. I love that, because it's so, I know it started off kind of funny, just like just this, but it was so practical how you guys unpacked that, and even how it continues to carry into the season where you're at, that this is not something that was just for that season of trying to get over it, but this is actually, this is now the way of life and the way we do ministry and all of those things. And so thank you for being so candid and just honest with that and vulnerable, honestly, because that's not a small thing. And I know I want to say, just from an outsider's perspective, once again, Sal, this won't affect you because you have no emotions apparently, but
it's going to affect me.
But you're about to cry. I can't wait. No, in all seriousness, just to see where you guys are at even today, right now. I just feel like you fully have given yourself over to that process, and you continue to grow. And I do see the humility, Sal, believe it or not. I do see it, because I do. I really do. And you're not the same as what you were. And I liked that guy back then too. But that it's not just encouraging, it's inspiring to see what God has done in you and continues to do through you. So thank you for just being transparent about all that.
Well, I think that I wish that more people were as vulnerable, if I'm being honest. That is something that I think that we would really do well as ministers of the gospel, to be more vulnerable and show that we're really human and that we make mistakes. I think we think that we have to hold it all in. And that always honestly ends in a bad place, I feel like.
Yeah.
More than not. And
Yeah.
I think, if I was talking to somebody younger than me, I'd be like, just let us know when you're struggling. Be willing to show yourself as a human being.
Yeah.
Because we are not perfect and we don't have it all together.
First Sunday here at the church, when we got up on the stage and we told the church, the congregation, first Sunday, we said, if you are looking, they waited 9 months for new pastors to be installed.
9 months. They were in transition here before we came.
And we got here and everybody's so excited. We were so excited. And we told everybody, if you are looking for perfect pastors, it's probably time you found another place to worship. We are not.
It's not us.
We're not that. That's not going to be us. We are going to make mistakes, and we are going to be on this journey together. Mm-hmm. And that was, and allowing yourself to be like, hey, there are things that God is doing and working in my sorrows, in my brokenness, in all of the things that I carry that are not just there to help me.
Yeah.
But when I release that to God, when I give that over to God, and when I have those conversations with people can then also walk away with, man, I'm kind of feeling that way too. Like, let's talk about that. Let's dialogue about that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's so good. Well, listen, I'm watching the time, and there's so many other things I wanted to talk to you about today that we're probably just going to have a part 2 in the future here. But this has been so good, and it always just warms my heart to just spend any time with you, even if it's through a computer screen. Yes. So I just want to say thank you, Sal and Krystal, mostly Krystal, for your time today. I'll give you a digital hug, buddy, right here. It's so good to see you eating sandwiches again. It really is.
Yeah. He's eating a lot of sandwiches.
I'm eating a lot of sandwiches.
He's trying to cut back on the sandwiches.
I mean, you said it. I didn't have to, so that's that's fine. That's fine. I am so grateful for you both, and just once again, I know that those that are going to be listening to this is going to impact them. So thank you once again for just being so real and transparent about your journeys and the work that you've had to do, but also that showing us that there is hope on the other side of that. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us. Really. I know we were joking about arriving.
Another level, bro.
We are really, we really do feel so privileged to be a part. So thank you for having us. Yeah.
It's the privilege is ours. And I mean that as well. It really is. It really is. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks again for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to connect further with our guest, we've made ways to do so available in the episode show notes. If you'd like to connect with us further, support the podcast, or sign up for show updates, just go to withouthatingit.com to get started. And don't forget to subscribe to Ministry Without Hating It wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss our future episode releases. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.